Before jumping on to autosomal dominant, what this term autosomal means. So we know that there are 23 pairs. Last one is XY for males, XX for females, right? So these are your sex chromosomes. So whenever a patient or whenever the disease present in these two chromosomes, these are called as X linked. If it is in Y chromosome, it is called Y linked. And apart from these two, rest all chromosome are your autosomes. So any kind of diseases, any kinds of changes, mutation in these autosomes, which will result in autosomal dominant or autosomal recessive type of condition. So for starters, what do we have? So first of all, let's understand what autosomal dominant. So we know it is an autosome. So what? So for autosomal dominant patient, first of all, it requires in his autosome at least only one copy. This is a very important line. One copy of affected gene which will cause the disease. Very well, very easy, right? So let's try to understand it in much more detail. Let's say this is one autosome. Let's say this is male. Then we have another chromosome. Let's say this one is female. Good. Now let's say he has a disease, so I'm marking it with red. Okay, and rest of them at the exact same position, it's normal, which will not give up disease. Okay, one more very, very important thing. For example, this is our chromosome. Okay, so this part is called P, this part is called Q. Let's say this is chromosome 4, so CHR4. In the above scenario over here, the disease was in this part, so we'll say CHR4P over here in this part, which has a disease. Okay, let's say, and even in this part, it will have multiple more segment 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so and so. So let's say it is on 10th position. So this is how we write the actual location of gene which is affected. Okay, so now we are clear with how to write the location of a gene on a chromosome. So in this case, the general review how to understand autosomal dominant. So we just said that this patient has disease and she is completely normal because both of her chromosome has normal genes. So blue is normal, red is affected gene which will cause the disease. So again, in the autosomal dominant, at least only one copy is enough to cause a disease. It doesn't mean that if both of them are affected, it will not cause. It is at least the least criteria. Okay, so now let's say they both get married. Let's change the color. Okay, white is good. They both got married, so they will have a possibility. Okay, one of the possibility, let's say this one, they got an offspring like this after assortment. Okay, he got one part from his father and one part from his mother. This is the child. Okay, so this is enough to give a certain disease in case of autosomal dominant disorder. Okay, let's see it in much more detail again. So right now we just said there is a male. Okay, this was the male. and we had a female. This is a female. Okay, we just said that this part was affected, which was causing a disease, and the rest of the same gene was completely normal. And okay, and how he got the disease? Because of mutations. Mutation can be again acquired, genetic, whatever. Okay, in this case we're talking about the genetic disorder. Also, there's one more very, very interesting question, that how that the first person who ever got the genetic disorder actually had the disease. Of course, he also acquired it somehow, and later on, the coming generation, he just kept on passing the same defective genes, and that's why we call it as genetic disorder. Okay, so he has a disease. Let's do the assortment. So this will pair up with this one. Okay, then the same one will pair up with this one, then this one will pair up with this one, and again this one will pair with this one. Okay, obviously let's do it. So this one will pair up with this one, the same one will pair up with this one with this one, and this one with this one. So we'll have 4 possibilities. Which one? This. Okay, which came from this part, and another possibility which came from this one. Second possibility, 1 and 2. 1 and 2. First came from first part and from here. Good. Then we have another possibility. One came from here, another came from here. And then we have last possibility. One came from this part, second came from this part. Let's give them diseases. If in first part, first, second, third, fourth, and hope you know that all of them account for about 25% chance. 25%. Okay. Before moving on further, there's a very important thing I must tell you. Hope you're aware with homozygous and heterozygous condition. You can change the letter, but the concept remains same. This is if both the letters are what we say bold, it is homozygous condition, and one is big, one is small, it is called heterozygous. So if instead of H you can see T, G, whatever. Okay, it doesn't matter at all. So in this case, let's say he has the disease and others do not. Okay, so this is kind of demonstration. So let's give them disease. So from here he got the disease, this part, and for the second part he do not have the disease because he got it from the mother. Second part again, he got it from the father, which was affected part of the gene, and from the mother part he did not get. And for the rest of them, he did not get the affected part of the gene. Okay, so clearly, as we can see, that these 25%, no, just because we just said only one copy is enough, and as we can see that over here it is 1, over here it is 1. Okay, so in both of these they will give us disease. Okay, disease can be any, which we'll talk about them in later videos. So how much is it? So it is about 25 plus 25%, about 50% chance for the child to have the disease, Now over here, very, very important concept come into so what the concept is. Over here we just said that, okay, let's change the slide. So what I meant to say that in these Before that, should we do the pedigree? Okay, let's do the pedigree, which is much more important. So let's say there is a female, there is a male, both got married, had about 4 children. Let's say male, let's say female, female, okay, let's say male, or let's change them. Okay, let it be. Both of the males got married and had 3 children. Again, over here, got married and had children. 1, 2, 3. Both of them 3, 3. One girl, one boy, or however you like. Okay. And hope you are aware that how we add the generation: first generation, second generation, and this is the third generation. Good. Now, let's say the male was affected. Okay. And let's say this female got affected and this male got affected. And they got married, both of them, they got married to normal females. And just because this male was affected, 2 of the offspring got affected too with the autosomal dominant disease. Now, the important point to note is that in the previous slide, we just said there was over here at least one heterozygous. Okay, this is the heterozygosity. Okay, so okay, before that, important thing. So as we can see that each generation, over here there's one affected, over here 2 are affected, over here and here, in the third also over here and here. So at least however, over here none of them are affected because the parent did not have the disease. So point to be said is that first, most of the generations will be affected. This is the point number 1. Point number 2, inheritance can be either from male or from the female. For example, let's say if this female in second generation, let's say she got married, and if she will have children, then there will be again chance of having the disease. Okay, let's say he got affected. Okay, so in simple words, disease can be from either of the parents, it can be male, it can be female, doesn't matter. That's point number 2. Point number 3, male to female ratio, not ratio, but male and females will be equally affected. Now, point to be noted that whenever I say male and female equally, doesn't mean that if there will be 3 males, there has to be 3 females. It simply means that if there are males affected, there are also female affected. The ratio can be anything. It can be 1:3, 1:1, whatever. If there is male affected, there will be female also affected. Okay, but maybe not in the same proportion. Okay. Now, next point, it cannot be inherited from unaffected parents. For example, in this case, he is unaffected, she's also unaffected, and the children are also unaffected. Okay, so these are 4 important points to be remembered. Now, before going on to another slide, I must tell you that it depends. Okay, now over here we just said that there was one heterozygous and one, or what you can say, these are small one. Okay, these are non-dominant one. Now, if there is one, the chances again differ. If there are 2 heterozygous, again chances will differ. So how much chances are actually there? Can I write it over here? Okay, so let's try to fit it in this place. So in this case, there was 50% chance if at least one heterozygous and one unaffected parent present. So this was about 50%, one heterozygous and one unaffected parent. Good. Now there will be about 75% chance if both of the parents are heterozygous and affected. Okay, so in simple word, let's say this part was affected, okay, and called HH. So this part would be affected too, okay, and this would be, it would be like that. So about 3 of them will be affected, and about there will be 50% plus 25% will have the disease, because as a rule only one is enough. Over here of course it is 2, but again it will give the disease. So it fulfills our criteria, this also fulfills our criteria, this also fulfills our criteria. However, in this case it's not. And lastly, there will be 100% chance if one homozygous. So again, if let's change the color to green. So if there will be one homozygous, okay, affected, homozygous affected, okay, and the rest of them is normal. So this will be affected, this will be affected, this will be affected, and this will also be affected. So about 100% chance will be there that all of the child will be affected in this case if there is at least one homozygous affected parent. So in the next video I'll talk about autosomal dominant and how there is inheritance going on in them. I'll talk about different types of diseases in it. Okay, and after that hopefully you will be able to make a diagnosis. At least it will give a hint that what could be the possible diagnosis. Okay, so see you in the next video.